What up, brawlers? Welcome back to Throwing Hands. As Daniel and I will be reviewing the year. Lots has happened this year. But Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Wrapping up 2020. It was a banner year for fighting, and I'm excited to be able to wrap it up.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Here on Throwing Hands, this will be episode 90. Oh, got check it. This episode that you're hearing right now is episode 94. If I'm not, yes, 94 episodes. To be honest, Daniel, I thought we were gonna fizzle out at around 30, 25, but hey, we've kept on going.
Here we are.
And here we are. But let's take a look back at our podcast. What were some of your favorite interviews this year?
We've done so many. Honestly, being able to talk to guys in the industry, I love so much. Brendan Fitzgerald, Phil Murphy, those guys did so much. I think for us in being able to just talk about everything that goes into the business of covering MMA, covering the UFC. And then if I had to pick a fighter, Youssef Zalal was one of our first interviews, and he was just so much fun to talk to. A great story for him, growing up, getting into kickboxing to stay out of trouble as a kid, and then he's come this far. He moves to the United States from Morocco, and he's at a point to where he's one of the top 25 under 25 in the UFC right now. And we really were able to interview him while he was still on his way up. And I think that was really cool. That was really fun to be able to do. And I'm excited to see where he grows from here.
Yeah, I am too. And I think one of my favorites was Julian Marquez. He was just fun. He was just a fun guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Really funny. And Dan Stupp, he helped us out a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we talked to him. So that was definitely something I really enjoyed. And just, I don't know, we're just privileged to have all these different guys on.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's all been good.
Just to throw in, because of the editing job that he made you do to keep this podcast PG, I have to throw in Justin James, just because, again, a really fun guy to talk to, and we try to keep it PG. We gotta live up to the standards of West Virginia University, because this is a podcast affiliated with our student radio station. And Justin James, great interview, but also I did not envy you having to edit that podcast on the back end.
Yeah, that was a nightmare to edit, and Common Worthy was a nightmare to edit. That was bad, but hey, we got to interview both of them, so I can't complain. Both very cool dudes. All right, event of the year. What was your event of the year?
I got to go with UFC 251 because it seems like the cliche pick because there were so many title fights, but it lived up to the billing. I mean, you look at this, and there's 3 title fights on this card. And then even the undercard, you have Amanda Hebus putting herself on the map with a win against Paige Van Zant, Jessica Andrade with the win over Rose Namajunas at strawweight to really vault herself into the top end. And then the 3 title fights to finish it off. Petr Yan is crowned as the new bantamweight champion with a knockout of Jose Aldo late in that fight. It was really entertaining. Jose Aldo showed us some things that I think we've seen more recently prove he's here to stick around at bantamweight. And then Petr Yan proved everything that everybody had said about him, and proved the people saying that he didn't have the experience to be a bantamweight champion. He proved those people wrong. The co-main event was one of the most competitive fights of the year. Not the ultimate violence that you're looking for in a fight of the year candidate, but Volkanovski and Holloway fighting for that featherweight title, just as competitive as a fight as I think we've seen all year. Volkanovski retains the title in a decision at the end of the 5th round. And then Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. And when this card happened, I raved about this on our review, because people talk about Kamaru Usman being a boring fighter, but I love watching this guy. And I talk so often, and it's become a cliche of the show, I talk about the art of mixed martial arts, and that's what Kamaru Usman does, and that's what he shows me every time he goes out there. He's a dominant champion. He's not gonna sell as many pay-per-views as guys like John Jones is, or even Francis Ngannou are gonna do. But Usman goes out there and he fights in a style that is just so much fun to watch for me. And for that reason, him putting on a masterclass against Jorge Masvidal in the main event of that card was the perfect way to end it for me. So UFC 251, and that's just talking about the main card. There was so much more on the prelims that were just really entertaining fights to watch. The UFC built it up as one of the best cards of the year, and for my money, it ended up being number one.
Yeah, that was a great event. But for me, I'm going to deviate away from the pay-per-views. And I think for me, the most entertaining was Fight Night Ortega versus Korean Zombie. I mean, you had Jonathan Martinez, getting this decision over Almeida. James Krause coming back after a while, getting the win over Silva, who'd been on fire. Jimmy Crute decimating Modestas Bukauskas. Andrade ripping the body on Caitlin Chikagian. And then just Ortega just looking great in that fight against Chan Sung Jung. And I mean, there were just so many good events this year. Heck, Sandhagen versus Moraes, that card was great. Just in general, I can't think of a bad card after we came back from Corona. They were just all solid cards. Like we expected I versus Calvillo to be crummy, but that was actually a very entertaining card.
Yeah.
But it's just you can't go wrong with any of these cards depending on what you like. If you like, like you said, the art of martial arts, 251 would be great if you think that's the best card. And 254 was great. 254 was great. Just a lot of great cards here. So I don't know. Do you have anything else to add to the cards of the year?
I just wanted to add a couple things. I talked about the prelims at 251, and I completely forgot until this moment when I was looking at the card that this is what happened that night. And it's one of the moments that set our group of sports guys at U92 over the edge. The legend of Muslim Salikov, aka Russian Jimmy Gaudio. Again, most people listening to this don't know who Jimmy Gaudio is. Good friend of ours from U92. Dead ringer for Muslim Salikov. So one of the best comedy moments of the year for us. And then also the spelling bee champ Yuri Prochaska makes his debut on that card too. So those are just a number of things that happened at 251 that put it in the books for me.
Yeah, definitely. So to the next topic, submission of the year. For me, I think it's got to be Lipsky's knee bar back on Fight Island. That was pretty nasty. I thought she was giving up her back, but then she just pulled out the knee bar out of nowhere. So that's my submission of the year. What's yours?
Yeah, I gave a lot of thought to the knee bar from Lipsky, and it was a great finish. Just the way she was able to use it to fight back. It was honestly a defensive move for her when she got to that point. And from just a spectacle standpoint, yeah, I think that's probably the best submission of the year from a technical standpoint. As far as impact goes, and as far as a moment that you got out of a submission, I went with Raheem Sterling's rear naked choke on Corey Sandhagen at UFC 250, just because that was such a moment in time watching that fight. Aljamain Sterling, who has just scratched and clawed for everything he's got in that bantamweight division, and then to finish Corey Sandhagen in 88 seconds when he was being overlooked really in that division. This was supposed to be Corey Sandhagen's crowning moment to make him the next contender for the bantamweight title. And Aljamain Sterling goes out there and does that in 88 seconds. The athleticism, the emotion that he put into that fight was just one of the best moments of the year. And with it being a submission finish, that's what I made my sub of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. There's just so many other subs, Habib's triangle, and lots of good stuff in the submissions. Do you have anything else to add?
Not really. The forearm choke from Alexander Romanov was really cool, just because you don't see that very often. That was a fun one to watch.
Yeah, that was a really fun one to watch. Forgot about that. And Hermansson's heel hook on Gastelum, I didn't expect that. So lots of good stuff. All right, knockout of the year. What's yours?
It's got to be the Joaquin Buckley spin kick on Impa Kasanganay, Fight Island 5. That was ridiculous. I mean, for a minute, it kind of broke the internet, because it's only in moments like that you see like UFC clips and stuff on Twitter like break into the mainstream, and that's exactly what that knockout did. Like that was a move at a Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or something that Joaquin Buckley pulled out. Kasanganay catches the leg and he spins and just drills him on the jaw. And it was the kind of thing where Kasangane, as he was going down, like he was trying to stay up and you could see he just couldn't. And that was absolutely amazing. Joaquin Buckley, we're talking about a guy that opened the year getting knocked out himself. And now he comes out and has the knockout of the year and has a really bright future in the UFC. Again, I talked about one of the best moments of the year with Aljamain Sterling. It's got to be one of my favorite moments of the year, too, that Joaquin Buckley knockout.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with that being the knockout of the year. That has to be. But other than that, I think it's got to be Kevin Holland off his back, knocking
Oh,
out,
my gosh.
what's his face? Oh, it's Jacare Souza. Besides Joaquin Buckley, I think that has to be it. I mean, yes, I know Garbrandt flatlined a Sun Sal, if I'm not mistaken. No, for me, I can't remember.
It was a Sun Chow.
Yeah, it was a Sun Sal. But I mean, I've never seen anybody do that off their back. But for your runner-up, what's yours?
It's Kevin Holland on Souza. I think there was a pretty clear three, and it's the ones that we've mentioned with Buckley number one. For me, it's Holland number two, and then Garbrandt number three on a Sunshine, just because it was a walk-off, and he just absolutely drilled him. So those three, I think any year you would look at those three as a contender, but for me, it's that Buckley one that sticks out.
For sure. All right. From knockout of the year to fighter of the year. For me, it's got to be Kevin Holland. I think Figueiredo would have gotten it if he had made weight and if the first time and if he had won his last bout. I think besides that, I think it's got to be Kevin Holland. 5-0 in the year, and he did it quite well. So who's your fighter of the year?
It's really tough because I really, really want to say Davis and Figueiredo. And I think that wouldn't be a bad choice just because of what he has been able to do this year. And when things have been going right for him, he's been so dominant. You've got Kevin Holland, who we love on this show, who's one of my favorite guys in the UFC, who's one of my favorite guys to watch. But I've got to go with Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, we're going to talk about him being out of this fight with Leon Edwards when we get done with our picks here. But we're talking about a guy who is going into his fourth fight in the UFC and is going to get a guy who I don't have the rankings in front of me, but earlier this year, Leon Edwards was a top 5 guy in the UFC welterweight rankings, and Chimaev's fought 3 times in the UFC. Like that's absolutely wild to me. He won twice in 10 days. Every fight he's had in the UFC has been a performance of the night. Like, we're literally looking at a guy who did not fight in the UFC until July, and was preparing to start 2021, taking on a guy that, for my money, is top 5 in the welterweight division. So it's not a big sample size for Khamzat Chimaev, but I think he's if you can't call him the fighter of the year, he's got to be the breakout of the year. It comes down to him and Kevin Holland for me, but Chimaev has shown so much and got pushed so hard this year that I think he's my pick. The guy's got a Darce choke win, and that's completely amazing. And then he just dominates people at such a high level. I'm going with Chimaev. I think that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I think definitely when it comes to breakout, it's got to be Chimaev, but you can't go wrong with either Kevin Holland or Chimaev for fight of the year. All right. For the Granddaddy Mall fight of the year, what's yours?
Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, UFC 248, the greatest women's UFC fight of all time. I mean, it had everything you wanted in a great fight. It had everything you want out of a fight of the year candidate. There were so many, and it was almost like the year was bookended with them, where you've got Zhang versus Jędrzejczyk at the beginning of the year, and then you finish it with Figueiredo versus Moreno. I know it's not a perfect fit in that, but it kind of brings a weird 2020, but what I thought was a banner year in 2020 for the UFC full circle, where my top 2 fights of the year sort of started the calendar for the UFC and ended it, but it's so hard to beat Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. It's one of my favorite fights of all time, and I'm going to put it in that number one slot just because it was such a special fight. And like it was one of our first episodes was reviewing that card. And, we were still finding our place with this show and what exactly we were going to be doing. But I can't tell you how many times it seemed like we said on that show, this might be the greatest women's UFC fight of all time. And because of that, it has to be my fight of the year.
I can't argue with you there, but there's a lot of them in that came this year. Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Yeah. And then 3 months later you have Poirier versus Hooker, and then you have Hermansson versus Vettori, and then you got Moreno versus Figueiredo. But for me, I think it's got to be Poirier versus Hooker because that encompassed everything that came into MMA. They slugged it out for a few rounds and they went to the ground and they fought on the ground. I'd say Zhang Weili versus Joanna was more of a kickboxing match. It was great. I enjoyed the hell out of that. But when it comes to a complete mixed martial arts fight, it's got to be Poirier versus Hooker for me.
Yeah, I give you that totally.
So, you know what? I guess we'll add something here. Performance of the year. I think it's got to. I think so. This I don't know, a little interesting. I don't know why I didn't put this on the agenda, but for me, I think it's Conor versus Cowboy. I think what Conor did to Cowboy, that just complete decimation. He didn't even get hit, and he blocked whatever Cowboy tried to throw at him. And especially after a year and 3 months off, I think it's got to be Conor versus Cowboy for me. What's yours?
Yeah, I think that's a solid one. I think that makes a ton of sense. I would probably go with that one too. But honestly, if I'm looking for a runner-up, again, a favorite guy of mine this year and someone who's really come on the scene in 2020, not necessarily a spectacular performance or a standout. This is tough because this guy's got two. If we're looking at a straight performance, my runner-up might be Marvin Vettori, either for his rear naked choke against Carl Roberson or that decision win against Jack Hermansson, because either one of those, I think you could look at as a potential runner-up here, just because that Roberson fight, Roberson came in overweight and Vettori still chokes him out in the first round. Or you look at the Jack Hermansson fight where Hermansson is so hot coming into that. He's looking to be the next challenger for that title. And then Vettori just goes shot for shot with him for 5 rounds and ends up winning that fight. It was the fight of the night that time. So I would say Marvin Vettori beating Jack Hermansson might be my runner-up, but I would agree with you. Conor versus Cowboy is my performance of the year.
All righty. Now, expectations for next year. Any predictions on champions in the weight classes? Fighters to watch. What's your thing?
You're putting me on the spot with that one. Yuri Prochazka. Watch out for Yuri Prochazka in 2021. I think this guy is going to be making some noise in a big way. I think Chimaev, you're going to be looking at him as a title contender potentially by the end of 2021. I think he's that good. Kevin Holland's the same way. I mean, it seems like a lot of the carryover that we're going to get from 2020 is these guys that made their names are going to make themselves contenders in 2021. I just talked about Marvin Vettori. Here's a bold prediction. By the end of 2021, we will get a rematch of Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori, and this time it'll be for the UFC middleweight title. That's my bold prediction for 2021.
I don't think that's too bold, to be honest. I think okay. that's entirely possible. Dang, I just sounded like Joe Rogan there. But anyway, here's my prediction. I think Calvin Kattar will be the featherweight champion by the end of 2021. I mean, I love Calvin Kattar. Best boxing in the UFC right now. He very underrated wrestling, and I think he'll beat Max Holloway in a few weeks, and then I don't know, after Ortega Volkanovski, I think that he'll get his title shot. I don't think you could argue with that if he wins. So that's one of my bold predictions. I think Jan Blachowicz will beat the brakes off of Israel Adesanya for the light heavyweight title in March. And I think when Gilbert Burns and Usman fight, I think Burns will win. Those are my predictions. I got a little bold here and there, and I think Figueiredo will just reign supreme. I don't see that changing.
All right. Let me think. I got one more.
Ooh, all right.
This is real bold, but I'm gonna give it to you. This is tough. I think Francis Ngannou will be the heavyweight champion of the world before John Jones.
You think he'll beat Stipe?
I don't know if it'll be him beating Stipe or Stipe retiring and Ngannou getting the next shot against somebody like Blades and winning it. But I will say this: Francis Ngannou will be the heavyweight champion of the world before John Jones. I will say that.
But will he end the year as the champ?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know.
I know.
I think it'll happen sometime. It'll happen sometime in 2021, and it will happen before John Jones becomes the heavyweight champion. That's what I'll say.
That's not too bold. I think you make a good point. I mean, Stipe has cemented himself as the greatest heavyweight of all time, in my opinion. I mean, you could argue Fedor, and I wouldn't blame you. But yeah, I think Stipe has nothing else to prove.
No.
I wouldn't mind if he kept his brain a little bit, but I think when John Jones moves up to heavyweight, it's going to be a long 5 years with him up there, because I mean, you've seen him on Instagram. It's kind of scary.
Yep.
it's scary.
Yep.
He's a natural heavyweight, and I think he'll be a scary problem. But yeah, I think my boldest prediction is Blachowicz being the brakes off Adesanya. But other than that, I don't know. You have anything else to add?
I want to make more predictions, but I don't want to go too far. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Let's see. I'll give you one more. And I don't know how bold this is, but I think Mackenzie Dern will beat somebody in the top 3 in the women's strawweight division in 2021.
Yeah, I think she definitely will. Yeah. I think Hebus will make her way up in the top 5.
Yeah.
I think Shevchenko stays supreme in that. That's not changing. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. I think by the end of 2021, we're looking at Amanda Hebus and Mackenzie Dern both as top 5 strawweights.
Oh, for sure. I don't think you can argue that. And I mean, the division's just so stacked. And then Nunes I think the featherweight division will get cut after she beats the brakes off Megan Anderson, and then bantamweight will just be there. And Amanda Nunes has a chokehold on that division. I don't see anyone beating her. It's unless Shevchenko comes up, which I mean, you could argue she won the second fight, but I think that's the only fight to make for Andrade.
I agree.
I'm not Andrade. Yeah. What's her face? Nunes. Yeah. But, and heck, Andrade fights Shevchenko, but I think Shevchenko knocks her out. That's my next bold prediction.
There you go.
All right. Any other bold predictions, expectations you want to talk about? Because I'm clear of mine.
I don't think so. Charles Oliveira.
Oh, you think you'll be the champ?
I think so.
I can't argue with you. But
Charles Oliveira, lightweight champion.
This is a good segue into news. Khabib said Poirier versus McGregor should be for the title.
I can't see why not.
And you know what? I'll add a prediction. I think Poirier will be the champ by the end of the year.
Okay.
I mean, that's my hope. I love Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
I think he might be my favorite. And just seeing the evolution of him over the last 4 or 5 years with his defense and footwork has just propelled him to be one of the best lightweights in the world. So I can't really count him out. And Charles Oliveira, Bronx, this lightweight division stacked. But to news, Chimaev versus Edwards is off, unfortunately. Leon Edwards is TBD, so he's still around. He's going to fight. But Kevin Holland came out on Twitter and said, hey, I heard a spot opened up. So I think I could see a catchweight fight happening.
Yeah.
I am down for a catchweight fight.
That'd be a good time, my friend. That would be a good time.
That would be a good coach.
Imagine if Leon Edwards waits this long for a big time fight, and just gets flattened by Kevin Holland.
Yeah, he could get flatlined.
I'd
That'd be
feel
the
bad for the
concern.
man. I would feel bad for the man.
Yeah, just getting flatlined by Holland. But yeah, there hasn't been too much. I haven't heard much about cuts or yeah, it's been
Mm-mm.
pretty light. Oh, Ben Askren, he did agree to a fight with Jake Paul, but Jake Paul has since gone silent, and Askren has since called him a coward, which I firmly believe Jake Paul is.
There you have it.
There you have it. Oh, I'd pay a gross amount of money to watch that fight.
Yes, so would I.
See,
So would I.
I'd like to see him. I'd like to put Cater in front of Jake Paul and just see him get the break speed off of him.
Yeah.
Just anything to shut his ass up. Oh, damn it. That's more editing for me. But anyway.
Oh well.
Oh well. You got anything else?
Just a couple matchmaking things.
Right.
Anthony Smith has been talking about cutting out distractions in training camps. Said his next fight he would welcome Paul Craig or Jimmy Crute as a potential opponent. Jimmy Crute called him out after his last win, and then he said he wants to fight Paul Craig just because of their styles. So I would welcome either one of those. I think that could potentially be a star-making performance for Crute, who everybody's looking at as a guy who could be really one of the stars of 2021.
Oh yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think Jimmy Crute could propel himself into title contention by the end of the year. He won't get that shot, but he'll be there to contend. But yeah, I mean, I'd be totally down for that fight. Yeah, nothing else for
Yeah.
me. What you got?
Just one more, and we talked about this before we started the show. Mason Jones has signed with UFC, and we kind of knew that already, but he's got his first opponent. Cage Warriors standout, Wales native, 25 years old, 10-0 as a pro. He's a 2-division champ in Cage Warriors. So he's one of the best fighters outside the United States right now, I would say, who hasn't fought in the UFC. And he's going to fight Mike Davis at UFC Fight Island 8, which is scheduled for January 20th. And there you have it. So Mason Jones, a guy that I'm excited to watch in 2020. And he's getting a solid test in Mike Davis. Didn't fight in 2020, had to pull out of a couple of fights, 1-1 in the UFC, but he's 8-2 as a pro. So a good start for Mason Jones. And I mean, he's just been absolutely dominant in Cage Warriors. So I'm excited for this one.
As am I. All right. You got anything else?
That covers it for me, my man.
That covers it for me. All right. Let me give you all the rundown for the next couple weeks. A couple interviews this week coming out. And then we're going on break for a week, 2 weeks pretty much. And then we'll be back to preview Holloway versus Cater. So exciting stuff on our way to episode 100 in early 2021. Daniel, it's been a good year.
Yes, sir. It's been a pleasure. I don't think we were expecting things to end up like they did when we started this show back in early 2020, but here we are, and here we go into 2021.
Here we go into a strong 2021 and hopefully growth. Well, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you guys next time.